Well, good morning. I'm glad to see all you here today. Welcome, old and new friends. Good morning again. I am Kathy Kinner, and I am privileged to be your worship associate on this very special morning. Today, Reverend Laura Thompson, our new minister, is giving her inaugural sermon. This moment marks the official transition in UUSM's ministerial leadership. Let us wholeheartedly welcome Rev. Laura as she explores with us the emotional and spiritual challenges of change. Let us now begin our service with the words of Linda Barnes. Suspended between all that was and all that might be, we struggle to find this moment, to live this very moment. Let us sit together for a moment and savor this moment. Let us relish this between time where past meets future. Let us harbor a faith that reminds us that right now, right here, is enough. Come, let us worship together. For a new beginning, in out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time, it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the gray promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered whether you will always live like this. Then the delight, when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is still not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desires. Awaken your spirit to adventure. Hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.
Good morning. Good morning, UUSM. I am delighted to be joining you as your new contract minister. And I want to thank you all for the incredibly warm welcome that you've extended to both me and my wife, Emily. We're both so happy to be here. And we're loving the time spent exploring our new life on the peninsula, and we just thank you for welcoming us to this community with open hearts and such a generosity of spirit. But I'm here to work, so let's get started. Last week, Sheila and Suzanne did Suzanne, I'm still learning it, did a wonderful job in reminding us about the constancy of change in our lives, alongside some tips for us how we can think about reframing change to make it easier to handle and find our place within the process. But let's step back a minute and talk about the feelings that arise within us when we're going through a process of change, especially life's big changes. So let's start there. By show of hands, how many of you just absolutely love big life changes? No? David? David does. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sometimes it's exciting, right? And other times, it's a lot. It's a lot to handle. The fact is, we often don't love those big life changes because we often don't love change. Change is uncomfortable, right? We might feel like we've lost control or we feel lost. So I was reading this blog post, and it's on BeTheChangeASF.com. The ASF stands for the Ashford and St. Peter's National Health Service Foundation and Trust, which is an organization that helps instill trust in people that are training for the medical profession. And so they wrote about how we're hardwired to be resistant against change. They explain that change comes along as it does all the time, but we crave certainty, right? And neurologically, we don't respond well to situations where we don't know what to expect. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. We perceive the lack of being able to predict those outcomes as a very real threat often, right? And this leads us to kind of move into our lizard brain kind of space when we feel threatened, right? So we go into that fight response. Sometimes we even panic. We get anxious. Psychologically, we're also affected by change because our self-esteem and our confidence are undermined when we feel we're not in control of any given circumstances or the potential outcomes. Or we may worry what other people will think about us and how we're able to navigate through whatever life changes are happening. Like, how do we look while we're doing this? This can leave us to feeling isolated when we're going through change and alone, even though some others might be going through the very same changes. When I read that, I immediately thought of puberty and perimenopause, right? Like, we're going through those changes, we feel so isolated and alone, and yet other people are going through them, and so we're not really isolated and alone. We face so many changes in our life, but the changes that are especially hard to go through are the ones that we didn't see coming, the ones that blew us completely off the path we were on. These changes come when relationships end, when we lose a job, when our kids leave home or move far away, when a loved one dies. We can experience these challenging changes collectively too, like we did during the pandemic. Do you remember when we were all wiping off boxes of Cheerios with Clorox wipes, right? Lizard brain responses. We didn't know what was going on. It was very scary. How we stood even further than 6 feet apart from each other in grocery stores. That first time at the grocery store, terrified. We were all looking out over our homemade masks, right? Because we all had the homemade masks then. And we were afraid and leery to even talk to somebody. It was a very big change, and we didn't know how to navigate it. A big global collective trauma that we all went through together. Within these drastic kinds of changes, we can feel lost, we feel like we have no control, and we have absolutely no sense of certainty as to what will come next. We thought it was only going to last a few weeks, right? And then maybe a few months. We had no idea. It doesn't feel good at all to be in that state. But life is full of changes like we sang that song in the beginning, even though some of us were looking ahead and disagreeing with the words as we do as Unitarian Universalists. Why do they mention hate so much and killing? That's how it was written. Full of changes, some good, some bad, some reparative, some destructive. The cycle goes on and on and on. So earlier, I talked briefly about the life cycle of the butterfly. But I want to dig deeper into that. So let's talk about monarchs. Have we talked about them before? Am I repeating some? Okay, I was counting on that you hadn't heard this. So it starts with this tiny, tiny egg smaller than the head of a pin. And the female lays a single fertilized egg on a milkweed plant. And then she repeats that process 300 to 500 times over the next 2 to 5 weeks. The eggs that survive the elements and the predators hatch in a mere 3 to 5 days. The larvae that hatches from the egg is very tiny, still smaller than the head of a pin, and extremely hungry. It actually eats its way out of the egg casing. That's how it starts. And then it eats, and 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 I'm sure maybe some of you are familiar with the book, The Hungry Caterpillar. It just keeps eating and eating and eating, and pretty much that's what it does constantly. And it grows, and it grows, and it grows so much that it has to molt its outer skin several times. And eventually, it grows 2,700 times bigger than it was when it was an egg. That's a lot. That's the equivalent of a human baby growing to the size of a gray whale. It's a lot. And while that seems like a tremendous amount of change for any creature to bear, it's nothing compared to what comes next. All of this feeding and growth leads to the next step. The caterpillar spins a special silk mat onto the underside of the branch, plants its feet securely hanging upside down, and then it sheds its exoskeleton one last time, revealing a green skin beneath, and that is the pupa or the chrysalis. And here's an important thing to note. The pupa stage of the butterfly is called a chrysalis, and it's noted by that green pouch, which was made of its new skin. The pupa stage of a moth is called a cocoon. It's not a skin. They weave it out of silk, so that's fully silk. The chrysalis is skin. Moths are cocoons. Butterflies are chrysalis. Within the chrysalis is what was the insides of the caterpillar, all of its parts. And it might be amazing to think that, oh, those parts just morph into a butterfly. You know, the legs are still there, and the wings just kind of pop out. But the true story is much more revealing and miraculous. Because what happens is that all of those parts liquefy. They all dissolve completely down. And so what's inside this little green chrysalis that I made here is just goo. It's just a little pouch of goo. Now, I don't know about you, but there are plenty of times in my life when I was going through one of those unseen changes, one of those kinds of changes that I wouldn't have wanted to happen, where I felt like I was a puddle of goo, right? Where I couldn't even recognize who I was, let alone know who I was going to become. It was just absent of my own identity. Maybe some of you have felt that way when you've gone through a big change, especially one not of your choosing. You know, in my late 30s, my son graduated high school and I moved out, and my 12-year relationship ended, and I quit my career as a chef. And I moved to a city nearby to go to college, where I lived for the first time by myself, where I didn't know anyone, right? That was some serious goo for me. Empty nest, changing careers, moving to a big city, going to college, relationship ended. Serious goo. Serious goo. Nothing about who I was the same anymore. I may have been a late bloomer in terms of when I went to college, but I was an early bloomer when it came to my midlife crisis. Did that in my late 30s, so we're all set there. You don't have to expect that from me at this age of my life. I've already done it. But in the midst of that change, in the midst of feeling so dissolved, I mean, there were honestly moments where I wasn't sure I could take it, that I could go on. It was so much change, so much heartbreaking change at once. But besides the dissolved sense of self in the goo, there is something else, something absolutely remarkable. And it's lying dormant inside the caterpillar. There are these little cells. Scientists have poetically named them imaginal cells. Isn't that beautiful? Imaginal cells, or imaginal discs, sometimes they call them. And these dormant imaginal cells within the caterpillar, they hold the blueprint for the eventual transformation into a butterfly, with each cell holding a different piece of the puzzle. And at first, they kind of act independently. But then what happens is the other cells inside the caterpillar see it as a threat, and they try and attack it. They see it as foreign invaders. The imaginal cells respond to that by seeking one another out and clustering themselves together. Together, they resist the attack, they multiply, and they persist and grow stronger, creating a community, if you will, of imaginal cells. They begin to resonate at the same frequency, and they communicate together until they overwhelm the caterpillar cell's defenses. Then they go on with their blueprints. The imagination turns to creation, and there the butterfly is formed. And it emerges looking completely different than before, and it spreads its wings, and it takes flight, following a trajectory path that was set for it so long ago, before it was even born. Following the light and the warmth of the sun to carry it on its purpose in the journey, on its purpose in that whole cycle. My new friends, in our lives, both personal and collective, we do good to remind ourselves of the imaginal cells that we have within us. What part of the puzzle do you carry? What do you bring when we come in together as a community? We do good to look at our loved ones and support systems, to this community, which also holds those cells. We do good to join together, aligning our frequencies, sharing what we know and what we hope. Together, in that sacred goo, we can find our own sense of becoming. Together, we can navigate through whatever comes our way and build a life that is beyond our wildest imagination. It's already inside, already, just waiting to emerge. May we make it so. Blessed be. Amen.
That was lovely. Good morning. I'm David Kramer, President of the Board of Trustees for the next 10 months and 13 days, barring unforeseen impeachments. Thank you, everyone. We're very excited about this. We are blessed to have a new minister after quite a bit of hard work by a lot of people, not including me. The president is not allowed to serve on the search committee. So, thank you for being here. Thank you to the search committee and the transition committee and all the other people who worked to feed into that so we could try and lay the foundation for our new contract minister. So attached to your order of services is the script for our ritual of covenant. So I kick it off, and you're all going to be asked to participate. So, on behalf of the Board of Trustees of the Unitarian Universal of San Mateo, I welcome Reverend Laura Thompson into a covenantal relationship with us as our contract minister. Reverend Laura, we are asking you to serve this congregation in a time of transition and possibility. We recognize your gifts of wisdom, compassion, and leadership. We promise to support you in your ministry, to speak with honesty, to listen with openness, and to work with you in a spirit of trust. Together, may we nurture this congregation's mission and serve the greater good with courage and love. Do you accept this covenant and the responsibilities of shared ministry with the people of this congregation?
I do. With a grateful heart and a clear calling, I enter this covenant with you. I promise to serve with integrity, imagination, and care. I will speak the truth in love, challenge us toward growth, and guide us in times of change. I will hold this community's values and mission with reverence. Together, may we cultivate justice, deepen spiritual connection, and build a beloved community that serves us here and reaches beyond our walls.
Will the members of the congregation please rise in body or in spirit to join in this covenant of shared ministry, please? We joyfully enter into this covenant with you, Reverend Laura. We will honor your ministry with our trust, our collaboration, and our open hearts. Together, may we be brave in love, bold in faith, and steadfast in hope. May this covenant be a living promise, sustained by our care, shaped by our shared values, and renewed by the spirit of life that moves through and among us. Let this be the beginning of a partnership filled with trust, transformation, and grace. May all those gathered say amen. Amen.
The fuzzy little caterpillar curled upon a leaf, spun a little chrysalis, then she fell asleep. While she was slumbering, she dreamed of soaring high, and then later when she woke, she was a butterfly. The little fuzzy caterpillar curled upon a leaf, spun her little chrysalis, then she fell asleep. While she was slumbering, she dreamed of soaring high, and then later when she woke, she was a butterfly. All right, I now know that you all know the music. I knew that beforehand. I already knew you knew the music. I want to see the choreo with me once again. And go. The little fuzzy caterpillar curled upon a leaf, spun a little chrysalis, then she fell asleep. While she was slumbering, she dreamed of soaring high, and then later when she woke, she was a butterfly. Again, the fuzzy little caterpillar curled upon a leaf, spun her little chrysalis, then she fell asleep. While she was slumbering, she dreamed of soaring high, and then later when she woke, she was a butterfly. There's only one more step, as is the case if we can ever do a song as a round here at UUSM. You better believe we will. 1, 2. Hold on tight. And don't forget those moves. And go. The little fuzzy caterpillar curled upon a little fuzzy caterpillar curled upon a leaf. Under little chrysalis, then she woke. And then later when she woke, she was a butterfly. The little fuzzy caterpillar curled upon a leaf. Sometimes in life, we get the choice to either be cool or to have fun. And the choice is always that it is better to have fun.
And that was fun.